In this lecture, we'll be continuing with our study of the graph editor and looking in particular at interpolation. Okay, so here's where we got up to last time. And if I select either of my cubes, we can see our graph editor and dope sheet update with the keyframes and curves. Now I want to talk about interpolation, which is the points you can see have these lines coming out of them. And you can actually click on the end of these and press G to grab and move them around like this. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but there's three kinds of interpolation modes that I'm going to introduce to you. So I'm going to just copy one of these cubes. So Shift D to duplicate on the y-axis and just move that across slightly. So we've got three cubes next to each other like this. Now I still had my record button selected, so it keyframed all these keyframes in the middle here for all these extra channels, which we don't need. So we can get rid of those in a moment. But I just want to point out that it copies not only the object, but any animation it has on it. So you can see our original curve there. We've got a few extra keyframes in the middle here, which we can see all the way down here because that's where our playhead was. So it's recorded those on frame 22, which we can see down there. But it's also got the original keyframe for the X location at frame 1 and frame 48. So let's get rid of the channels we don't need from here to here. I'll select those and press delete. And also I don't need this middle keyframe, so I can select that and press delete also. So now it should look exactly the same as the others. If I click across the others, you can see they're all identical. So now's a good time to pause the video, catch up with me and create your third cube. Now I am being a little naughty and not naming any of my items. It doesn't matter too much, but if you are finding it confusing, then select an object and press F2 and that will give you the naming options there. Or you can come up to the outliner up here and just double click and rename objects there as well. But I'm going to just leave them as they are. Okay, so interpolation modes. Let's click our furthest away cube. And in the graph editor, I'm going to select all my points with A. You can always box select as well like this. And to change the interpolation, the shortcut is the letter T, so interpolation. You can actually come up to key and then interpolation mode just there, and you get the same options. So you can see the shortcut just there. So with my mouse over the graph editor, if I press T, we get that same menu. Now don't worry too much about the things going on the right-hand side here. These are the main interpolation modes. And the first one is constant. So I'll add that to my first cube. And you can see it jumps back to the beginning here. And I want you to, before you play any animation, just look at the graph and think what it will do. Pause the video and have a quick think about that. Okay, so I'll press the play button and it stays still until the very end frame where it jumps to the end. You can just about see it there. So what constant does is that it doesn't really have any interpolation between the keyframes. It waits until it changes and then changes. The other types of interpolation, let's go to our second cube. I'll select all my keyframes again with A and press T. These two have kind of some sort of interpolation. They have in-between frames that the program works out. It's on Bezier by default, but there's also linear. So I'll change this one to linear. And notice how the cube moves slightly. And you can see this is a very direct line. So when I press play, it should move at an even pace. It's actually very difficult to visualize with the other cube in front of it using the Bezier interpolation. So I'll pause this, select the front cube here, which has the Bezier. If I select all and press T and change it to Bezier, it stays the same. So that's the default. But I'm just going to hide that for the moment by selecting it and pressing H. And now play the animation. And you can see that it's moving across at a consistent rate. So if I click on that again, there's no slowing down or speeding up. So I'll unhide the Bezier cube. So I'll press Alt H to unhide or make visible. And with them both selected here, you can see how the Bezier takes its time to speed up. They should cross over at exactly the middle point, and then it starts to slow down towards the end. So the steeper the curve, the faster it's moving. And the shallower the curve, the slower it's moving. And let's play that again. So it's behind and then it speeds up because it's steeper in the middle here and then slows down towards the end as the other linear one catches up. Okay, so now's a good time to catch up with me, adding the different interpolation types to your three different cubes. Pause the video and catch up with me. Okay, so the constant one is a little bit boring and it just jumps to the end there. So I'm going to select the keyframes for that with A, and press T again and change this one to Bezier. So it's caught up with the other one that's also a Bezier. What I'm going to do is just zoom out just a touch. In fact, I'll move this across slightly so you can see this more easily. And the dope sheet as well. We don't really need that so much now. And you can see the Bezier has what's known as handles. So if I select this point here, I can actually rotate this Bezier curve here and change the animation accordingly. So in this case, it will actually go further and come back. Let's go across. It goes further off the floor and then comes back on itself. So having a bit of a play with these handles can help you understand the curves and how it affects the animation of our objects. I'll undo that movement though. What you can also do is select the middle and press scale to scale these right up. So we've got this very steep curve here and then a very shallow curve here. So it will actually hit the end at exactly the same point as the other cubes, but it will go very fast at the beginning and slow down. So we can test that out, and it does exactly that. So now's a good time to catch up with me and have a quick play with the Bezier handles of that first cube. Pause the video and have a go at that. Now to get this back to its original point is actually slightly difficult. I can select the one that has the original size on it and Control C, which will copy the keyframe that my playhead is on. Go back to my original and Control V and paste it in. So Control C and Control V will copy and paste keyframes from other objects. So I want to set you a quick challenge, which is to change one of your cubes with the Bezier handles so that it's very slow to start off, moves very fast in the middle, and then is very slow to slow down at the end. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you can picture that kind of graph. Pause the video and have a go at that, but don't worry if it doesn't make sense because we'll go through it together in just a moment. So the challenge was to start off really slow. So our curve will come across here slowly. Then the middle bit was going to be very fast. So it will curve up here and be really quick and then slow down as it finishes. So basically we need to take both of these and scale them. Now you can do that one by one, but it's actually easier to select both of them. And in the middle here, we have a pivot point option, bounding box center by default. So if I scale them now, they'll scale by the middle point, which is what you have selected and the middle point between them. Whereas individual centers, if I press scale now, it will scale them outwards just by their individual centers as it says. And we can scale them up like this. So we've got slow to start, quick in the middle, and slow to end. And if I press play, you can see that for that cube, slow to start, then very quick, and then slows down, and they all meet each other at the end. So hopefully that wasn't too complicated and you got an okay with that. We won't be using this file again, but do remember to save your work if you want to keep it as a reference. I'll see you in the next lecture.